Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who's bracing himself for the TSS derby. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It's a little bit that and a little bit me trying to make sure. Today is Friday, right?
Today's Friday.
I think I'm finally on the level where I know what day it is.
Yes.
So that's going to return to that just in time to, yes, be nervous about the TSS derby.
So it's this Saturday. It's 12:31 US Eastern Time on ESPN+. It's Wolves hosting Manchester United in the FA Cup third round. TSS derby, the stakes, aren't they, Taylor?
I am not optimistic.
So the stakes for TSS are the winner of the TSS derby gets to hang their jersey in the TSS office.
Instead, you've just hung your layers in the office instead of your jersey.
Well, I recently took my jersey home to wash it so it can be nice and fresh when I hang it next Monday after Wolves knock Man United out of the FA Cup.
You rinsed out the luck, my friend. As everyone knows, you never wash the lucky jersey.
Maybe that's what Wolves did before they played Watford recently.
That could also be. That was the issue.
And what Man United did before they played Arsenal.
I think what Man United continue to do every game this season, pretty much, yeah.
So I'm guessing maybe if it's a good game, you and Ryan will be talking about it on the weekend review. I'll be watching. I doubt I'll be able to withhold making some comments. I'll bet you I appear in the weekend review via text message.
That would make sense, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But today,
today,
there's no animosity.
I'm already just thinking about how not looking forward to that game I am. But yes, let's talk about today, shall we?
No animosity. Today is a listener question special.
Shut up, Daryl. How's that for not animosity? Yeah.
I didn't buy it.
Yeah, nor should you have.
We have 12.
It's set with a question mark, I think, at the beginning of it. Anyway, yes. We have 12 questions?
12 listener questions. It's a full 11 and one sub who will get a run out.
So
all 12 will get a game.
This is what happens when you let an energetic, well-rested, I'm going to assume caffeinated Daryl pick the questions.
Yes.
This one and this one and this one and this one.
I also love listener questions.
I know you do.
They are some of my favourite shows.
I know.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention that if you subscribe and support the Total Soccer Show at $10 a month or more, which you can do at totalsoccershow.com/join, we guarantee to answer at least one of your questions per month on the Total Soccer Show.
We certainly do. We've got, as we said, 12. Let's get right to them, starting with Jen Kula-Jones, who asks, are there any female play-by-play or color analysts in English men's football? If not, do you foresee that changing anytime soon?
The answer is yes. There is one. There is one colour analyst, co-commentator. Her name is Sue Smith. She's a former England winger and forward, and she works for Amazon Prime. So I don't know if people know this, but Amazon Prime just started broadcasting about 2 different match days in England, the Premier League this season. Sue Smith was a co-commentator with Derek Ray on December 4th for Wolves v West Ham, and then on Boxing Day, Everton v Burnley. As far as I'm aware, Sue Smith is the only female co-commentator, as in like live commentary, in English football.
Can we talk about that for a second? So what is the difference then between play-by-play, color analyst, and a presenter? Because that's the thing I feel like you tend to see is like the top 10 female presenters in English football.
Well, I mean, I take play-by-play and colour analyst are the pair, right? There's always the person who's doing the X has the ball, passes to Y, and then the colour analyst is, that was a good pass by X to Y.
Yes, it was.
Right? So that's the pair. And then, in studio, you're a host or a pundit, essentially.
Right.
You have Alex Scott, former England and I want to say Arsenal player.
I believe you're correct, yeah.
She is pretty prominent in terms of presenting stuff. She was 2018 Men's World Cup. She was a pundit for, I want to say, the BBC. 2019 Women's World Cup, the same. And now she's a co-presenter of Goals on Sunday with Chris Kamara, which means she's very talented if she can work alongside Chris Kamara, because he is
I love that man.
A wonderful wild card.
I don't know, Jeff. I love that man so much. Yes, and I've seen a few different clips of her, specifically in preparation for this question. Yeah, there's the one where she sort of gets into it with Graham Souness because she's talking about teams playing in a low block, and he interjects to say, "What's that?"
Because Graham Souness wants to just talk about fight and passion and slide tackles.
But it was interesting in that moment because, like, I think I saw a lot of people
He's the reason Liverpool haven't won the Premier League in a long time.
He's the reason. The only reason. He's the one, and for people who are less familiar with Graham Souness, he's the one who's always criticizing Paul Pogba for having hair. I think that's the big thing.
Yep.
And also being a Man United player, but mostly the hair. But yeah, I saw Alex Scott get into it with him a little bit because he sort of interrupted to ask that question about what's a low block, and I saw some commentators, lovely comments on that YouTube clip, talking about how, like, what, he's just asking a question, he just wants clarification. And my feeling there is, like, I wouldn't just interrupt Daryl to ask him, like, a point-blank question when he's in the middle of making a point. The reason why you would do that is...
Have you heard our show? I'm pretty sure you do.
More of a, like, no, it's not this, like, just shutting it down. It's it is definitely not a thing he would do to a male presenter, and it felt like, yikes. It was definitely a hostile atmosphere.
It's very, I mean, the state of English sort of punditry is very old guard and new guard, and there's one and there's the other. I would imagine that as, for example, the women's England team gets more popular and the FAWSL gets more popular, you probably have a lot of female presenters and co-commentators and commentators get their start there and then get their way into like working on the Premier League. That is my guess.
I do just love the approach of like we can't have women football analysts. We've got to give all this money to Michael Owen and Jamie Redknapp to say
because they're already famous,
right?
Yeah. Ready for the next question?
I am. I just want to add, Rebecca Lowe is the greatest host in the world. She is not a color commentator or a play-by-play person, but still, she's the best.
She's one of the great British exports.
Yes.
Yeah. Next question comes from Brandon Paquin. Yep. Brandon Paquin wants to know which US men's national team player needs a move this transfer window.
The answer is several.
Pick one.
I think the biggest one for me is Bobby Wood, who I believe is still a professional soccer player. Uncertain, but basically wage issues, a lack of kind of desire from clubs in Germany, and then some issues with him coming back to Major League Soccer, salary there where he would be, I think have limited his availability and his ability to move.
He's at Hanover?
Yes, but I think is really, really on the outs, and unless something happens, I don't know when we see him again. So I think any move, even to Bundesliga, even to the Netherlands, even to just somewhere where he'll get minutes, I think is key.
He's fallen so far, I didn't even consider him a US men's national team player when I put my little list together.
Right.
I have two answers. Cameron Carter-Vickers, who was no longer on loan at Stoke. He's back with Tottenham. It's a long shot for him to play for Tottenham because he's not, I mean, much as I like him, he's not Jan Vertonghen or Toby Alderweireld or Davison Sanchez, right? He's not at that level. There's a rumour that he's going to Derby County on loan, which I'm all for because then you can do a sort of buy one, get one free. You can watch CCV and Dwayne Holmes in action with a little bit of Wayne Rooney as well.
That's the other one, yep.
So CCV to Derby. And then the other one, Aaron Long. Do you remember all the rumours that Aaron Long was maybe going to Southampton or to Marseille? It was going to be Aaron Long's big move from MLS to Europe. Those rumours were in November. It's January 3rd now, and that rumour seems to have cooled off.
I think a big part of that is because he was heavily linked with West Ham. Pellegrini now gone. David Moyes coming in, so maybe they slowed or even kind of canceled some of the moves that maybe they were looking at previously because they want to let David Moyes, who is now, I think, the long-term solution, maybe.
18-month contract, I believe.
So somewhat long-term, not fully. So we'll see how much freedom he has, how much kind of control he's given. But maybe that move still happens, but I take your point.
But I actually think Aaron Long might be the big answer because this transfer window might determine, maybe the summer as well, might determine whether he is a player that moves to Europe or is just a career MLS player. Because he's, 27, I think, at this point? So it's getting towards now or never for Aaron Long.
Similar, but not obviously the exact same, for why I had Cameron Carter-Vickers on my list as well, because he is a player who we see get lots of moves. I think he had 2 different loan moves last season.
He's been to Sheffield United, Ipswich, I want to say Swansea and Stoke. He's been to 4 championship teams already. If he keeps going, he could get the whole set.
You never know. But so like it's strange to think of him and say like he definitely needs another move. And where I had him on my list was sort of like he needs a move that makes sense, that puts him in a position to like not try to force him to play with his feet if he just can't do that, and that means he's not going to play. But like a team that are going to need him to be physical, to be a leader, to be whatever. If he can fit in and get consistent minutes, I feel like then you can start to develop, because a player who has confidence and form, I think it's easier to train to do other things than a player who is completely lacking form, and now you're asking them to do even more stuff on top.
And it's big for the US national team, right? For Olympic qualifying, if he does manage to get called up for the actual Olympics, and then maybe for the future for the senior men's national team. All right, I'm ready for the next question.
All right, let's do it. Carolyn Akari McCarthy asks, today I saw Jordan Pickford, well, I guess this is more of a statement than a question. Today I saw Jordan Pickford, the Everton goalkeeper, dribble from outside the area in and then pick up the ball. Is this allowed? Can you clarify who can and how can a pass into the box legally be picked up?
So I went back. Carolyn very helpfully gave us the minute that this happened. It was the 44th minute and 44:20 is when this happened in the Everton-Man City game. It wasn't a pass from an Everton player.
Can I just add that if this is being picked up, that is not your headphones that are breaking people. There's a large truck backing up in the alleyway outside. Reversing, right? It really freaked me out for a minute. I was like, you're hearing that, right? I'm not having like some weird brain aneurysm, am I?
It's collecting all our recycling. Okay. It's all our empty Coke Zero bottles are being picked up.
Yikes.
That's to send an extra truck.
That's a journey. Sorry, continue.
So, Jordan Pickford did receive the ball outside of his box, dribble in and pick it up. But it didn't come from an Everton player. This was a clearance from centre-back, Fernandinho from Manchester City. He hit a longish ball. Pickford was outside of his area, collected it, dribbled in, picked it up. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a pass from an Everton player, so therefore he's perfectly fine picking it up inside. Yeah.
Right. So when would that not be okay then? When could
if
he
it
not
was
dribble
passed
in?
to him by an Everton player, right? I even looked it up. Law 12, Section 2. It's an indirect free kick if the keeper touches the ball with his hands after it has been deliberately played to him by a teammate, or touches the ball with his hands after he has received it directly from a throw-in taken by a teammate. Then there's some exceptions for like headers and chests and what have you. But basically, it doesn't matter if you receive the ball outside the box, dribble in and pick it up, because it hasn't come from a teammate.
Right.
I understand why Calvin asked this question, though, because I think this is a weird American rule. And I learned this when I filled in goal for our indoor team, Richmond City, a few years ago. I received the ball outside the box, dribbled in, picked it up. Free kick.
Yep.
It's an indoor rule. I'm pretty sure that a keeper can't dribble into his own box and pick it up, but it's not an 11-a-side rule. And I think I should have been given a pass.
I mean, you were given a pass, you just picked it up. That's the problem. So I think maybe it is an indoor rule. I don't know. Maybe it's. I blame NASL, whatever. There's weird rules that seem to be different than what we have in the rest of the world.
You blaming NASL with no evidence?
NASL. Yeah.
Did you just make NASL the villain?
And maybe also MISL? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Major Indoor Soccer League? Yeah.
Do people pronounce it missile? They absolutely should have, right?
I would hope so.
I'm playing in the Missile League.
If it's still around, I hope they do. Next question.
Christian Art asks, are there any world-class or formerly world-class defenders you would sign as an MLS designated player? And then I chose this question, and I've added the caveat, it has to be realistic.
Right.
Because I would sign Virgil van Dijk and give him all the money as an MLS designated player for any MLS team, but he's not going to want to join right now. He'd like, I'm in the middle of a Liverpool title challenge.
Right. Yeah. I think you'd struggle to get him out.
I do think. Wait, how much money? I might be interested.
I think there are some realistic answers, both short term and like medium term. So, for example, a medium term one for me would be Diego Godin at Inter Milan, 33 years old, still going strong. So I don't think you could get him out of there now.
He's in the title race too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you could get him now, but I feel like he's reaching that point where maybe this time next year, that's the one I would throw DP money at. But in terms of shorter term, I would say Marcelo would be the one that I would maybe say.
I went centre backs only, but I guess technically Marcelo's a defender.
Technically, exactly. I think maybe he ends up being like a left winger or a central midfielder in Major League Soccer. But only 6 games for Madrid this season, yet he's only 31. I think he would be a borderline appointment designated player. That I think Marcelo is such a known entity that I can see people, not quite the level of Ibrahimovic or Beckham, but I could see people going to games to get to see Marcelo play a game because he's that exciting and a solid locker room presence by all accounts.
That's interesting. All right, I've gone for someone who I think could go this summer, and this is a possibility in my mind. Thiago Silva.
Okay.
35 years old. He's with PSG. His PSG contract expires the summer of 2020. Thiago Silva will be a free agent. He could go back and play in Brazil. He won't go and play in China. Nope. China has been the path for a lot of people to go make big money, more so than MLS, right, in the last few years. I don't know if people know this. I'm sure you know this. China recently changed the rules, right? I think the most you can earn now in China is £42,000 a week. Yeah. Right? They've really cut back.
Yeah. And then also, you can earn that unless your name is Mesut Ozil, in which case you're not allowed to earn anything in China. And I think Mesut Ozil is probably fine with it.
Yeah, so. I don't think he'll be going and playing in the Chinese Super League.
It seems
so
unlikely.
Existing players with contracts in China can see them out, but new contracts, like if Silva went there, he wouldn't be able to earn the mega money. That, for example, Miranda, his one-time partner, is earning at a Chinese team. Yeah. So Thiago Silva, I think, is a possibility to join an MLS team.
Oscar, I think, is still there too.
Yeah, he's making £400,000 a week, I believe. Yeah, he's making
gracious.
More than Oscar-worthy money is what he's making.
Well done.
Other possibility, you mentioned Marcelo, 31, Real Madrid. Sergio Ramos is 32. He's Real Madrid through and through, right? I know, didn't he start at Atletico maybe? But at this point, or Sevilla, sorry, he was at Sevilla. He's Real Madrid through and through at this point.
He's Andalusia, I think,
I can't see him wanting to play for another European team. I also think there'll be a point where maybe Sergio Ramos's power base in the locker room, right now he has it, right? Yep. But at some point it will be eroded and he won't have the control of the team that he used to have. That will be the time to move on. I think he could make a big money move to Major League Soccer, and he would be appointment television. He would watch Ramos destroy opposition strikers.
For similar reasons, pretty much exactly what you've just said. Gerard Piqué is in there in my mind as well. That would be a big change for him. I don't know if he's quite ready to leave Barcelona, but there are lots of
31 right now, so he's got a couple of years to go.
But there are lots of non-soccer reasons I could see him making that jump as well. Shakira probably wouldn't mind living in the United States. Who knows?
Oh, yes. That's a good shout.
And then here's the one that I know is not world-class, but plays on a team that used to be world-class and is in desperate need of a move. Doesn't Phil Jones seem like he would destroy Major League Soccer?
Do you think anyone would make Phil Jones a designated player? I guess they made Ian Ridgewell a designated player.
I think they would, and I think that would be a really good move because I think he could be sort of a holding midfielder / center back who's good in possession.
Yeah.
Because I think in Major League Soccer he would do just fine.
You'd have his various faces as your promotional material.
I think he'd be a really, really good signing because I think he'd be all action, and yes, you'd have all the Phil Jones faces to keep the memes going, and you could have him in different jerseys, and it would be all wonderful.
Phil Jones feels more realistic than, say, Thiago Silva or Sergio Ramos or Gerard Piqué.
Yeah. I think when we look at the players that the DP defenders, it's not a long list, and so I feel Phil Jones might be on that list for sure in terms of level of competition.
Ready for the next question?
I believe so.
It comes from Kelsey S. Kelsey S. asks, do you think allowing US women's national team members to play for European leagues would help or hurt the NWSL? And a bit of context for this, there's obviously the deal with the US Soccer Federation where basically, it's not exactly this, basically if you play for the US women's national team and you then play in the NWSL and you have a contract where your salary is paid by US Soccer and your salary is way above and beyond what everybody else in the NWSL is making, right? So if US Soccer loosened it up and said, all right, don't worry about it, go play for Lyon or whatever, would that hurt the NWSL?
Yes.
It would, right?
100%.
Why would it hurt the NWSL?
Because right now I think NWSL relies on the marquee names to attract fans, or to attract otherwise diehard fans. Diehard fans are going to be there. To attract more neutrals, you've got to have Megan Rapinoe, you've got to have Julie Ertz and Carly Lloyd and names like that. If they're all, other teams are aware of that too. So you've got to
have the name that someone's like, I'm going to turn on TV to watch this person play, or I'm going to go to the stadium to watch Megan Rapinoe.
Yes, and if you have more European clubs with more money, like Chelsea are aware of that too, Arsenal are aware of that too. If you get Alex Morgan in there, that's going to turn some heads. The tea celebration is going to be remembered potentially. Yeah. So I think lots of other teams would be aware of that marketing potential and that draw, and would happily give those star players more money.
They're the best players in the world.
Exactly.
There's also that, right? If you're looking to build a competitive team in Europe, you want some US women's national team players, right?
Yeah.
I can't see much upside to NWSL losing the marquee players, especially in terms of marketing. I can see an upside in terms of it would potentially open up slots for the next generation to then basically earn a good salary and maybe make a name for themselves to become the next Alex Morgan, the next Megan Rapinoe. But there's always an interim period where you don't quite have that, right? And I would also argue no matter how well you perform in NWSL as one of the marquee, upcoming marquee names, you don't really have the marquee name till you've gone to the World Cup and everybody's seen you do it, and a whole nation of people who only pay attention to the US women's national team at the World Cup suddenly know your name, right?
Yeah. So I think maybe the devil's advocate argument would be that if you had more players going abroad, then that opens up more space on domestic rosters for other players who might not otherwise get chances. That's one. The other one would be, the Washington Spirit have Mallory Pugh and Rose Lavelle, not because they were particularly adept at business and were able to get them. It's because they were really bad 2 years in a row and drafted them. And so maybe if you had players with more freedom to move abroad instead of getting drafted, then that kind of incentivizes those teams to operate a little bit better, work a little bit harder, so you can't just rely on being the worst but then getting the best as a result.
So those are the long answers, but the short answer is
nope.
It would hurt the NWSL.
It would hurt, yeah. Yep. Next question.
Yeah.
We're moving right through them. Derek Light. Who is the biggest club you reasonably see getting relegated within the next 5 years? Daryl, I'm going to need specific big clubs, please.
It's actually kind of hard, right?
I know. That's why I'm making it very specific for
One team that's towards the bottom end of the Bundesliga right now that I think of as a big name because they recently-ish won the Bundesliga is Werder Bremen. But I'm not sure how big Werder Bremen actually are in terms of the size of German clubs. Yeah. And this is our trip to Germany to see some Bundesliga. Really, it shook my certainties I had about who were the big teams in Germany. When I saw 50,000 at Eintracht Frankfurt and then 54,000.
When they were intimate stadium at Dusseldorf, we were it's going to be 26,000.
54,000. Right. I really have no concept now. I actually think, I did look this up, I think Werder Bremen Stadium is smaller than both of those. But Werder Bremen is a name that rings out to me because they won the league with Diego that one year. So now I'm all kinds of confused. I feel more certain in England where I think it's the usual suspects. Like Newcastle, big team. Always a chance they go down.
Yep.
West Ham, big team, always a chance they go down, especially right now. Aston Villa, who recently relegated, now back up, there's a chance they go down too, right?
And it's worth noting, some of those teams, that might not sound like that dramatic of an answer, and it isn't, because I think the answer is that...
I wish I had, I wish I could say, Tottenham, it's all going wrong. Right. But it's not, right? They're not going down.
No, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I would say, it's worth remembering that before Newcastle were relegated 2 times ago, they had been there for a while, and that in the moment was a big sign of like, wow, things have not gone well for Newcastle. I cannot believe they're relegated. West Ham kind of the same. And now, because they've been relegated a couple times, it feels more commonplace.
Yes.
So I would say that like because recency says like, oh yeah, those teams get relegated, Villa would be the same.
Yeah.
But in reality, like Villa getting relegated when they did was sort of like, wow, I can't believe that's finally happened. That's a club that had so many very good players.
Yeah.
But with all that said, I think you're absolutely right though that we're not going to see any big like top 8 teams get relegated anytime soon at least, because in my opinion, those teams have enough talent at their disposal that, like, look at that Chelsea team that were absolutely horrible in the final season under Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
They were near the relegation zone. As soon as he's fired, they go right back out. They finish, like, 9th or whatever.
It's more fixable, right?
Yeah.
If you're a big team and they're trending down, you can fix it with a new manager because the talent's there and something's obviously going wrong. There's an easy fix, right?
If you're Huddersfield and you have, like, 14 Premier League caliber players, if you drop 2 of them, you're suddenly in a lot of trouble, whereas Chelsea have, I believe, 90 Premier League caliber players at their disposal.
One interesting one, I don't know if this is just like panicky fandom. Right now, Wolves feel untouchable in terms of relegation.
I had them on my potential list,
But they are a team that's been up and been back down again. Not with the current very wealthy ownership, but I look at them right now as everything fits nicely, right? Like they have the relationship with George Mendes, and then Nuno's the coach, and he's good with George Mendes, and everything works because the type of player Mendes wants to bring in is the type of player Nuno wants. Everything fits nicely. A lot of Wolves' success is built on Nuno's sort of tactical system, that very good like 5-3-2 when they go away and they're hard to break down and they counter and all that. I think if Wolves lose Nuno, there's a chance that the whole project gets very shaky very fast, and it'll be a team that continuously finish top 10 will suddenly be in trouble. It's possible.
I agree and disagree with aspects of what you said. I agree because I think that my reason for thinking about Wolves was mostly because they're a team, as are most teams in the Premier League at this point, who have wealthy benefactors, and there's always that threat of what happens if that person runs out of money, or if they decide, never mind, I don't want to put money into this, or they get divorced, a la Monaco, and then suddenly they're struggling.
I'm not sure Frozen International can get divorced.
Yeah, I would
Unless
hope
they get
not.
divorced from the Chinese government, then they'll be in trouble.
I would hope not. But so that's the only way that I could see, similar to PSG, Man City, if those ownership groups just pulled out all their money, those teams are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But with Wolves, I actually wouldn't be as concerned about some of the stuff you've mentioned, just because thus far it feels like they have had plans in place. So I almost believe in them at this point. Maybe it's blindly, but I believe in them at this point that if somebody came in to try to get Nuno, there's already a list of people that they've kind of talked to or have a confident belief that person can come in and continue to do the job.
The only evidence I have that maybe all could fall apart if Nuno leaves is that there was a time after Frozen took over and they had Walter Zenga as the manager, and it was an absolute just shammockery of a season.
Travis Shammockery?
Travis Shammockery, yeah.
I heard...
So I'm just worried that Nuno's the outlier, and that maybe things aren't as well organised as it seems to be.
Yeah, that's... Well... Except
we'll find out if he ever leaves.
I think so. Andy Brassel and I forget who else. I apologize. We're talking on the Football Ramble Daily show, the most recent one about
not familiar.
transfers.
I've never heard of it.
That's fair. They were talking about how Hertha Berlin suddenly have a lot of money, and they're sort of doing the thing that clubs that get a lot of money really fast tend to do, which is they're just trying to have that one big signing to show we're here, and so they're after Goretzka. They've been after a couple other people. They have Klinsmann in, obviously.
Granit Xhaka.
Yeah, and then yes, exactly. And their argument, Brassel's argument, was you always do that when you first get the money. You're like, look, we can get this guy and this guy and this guy. Look what we've done. Yeah. And then after that wears off and you realize, that didn't work, then you have the secondary round of okay, now we're actually going to sign the players that we need, and we're actually going to be smart about this. And I feel like Zenga was that first thing. Nuno was very much the second.
Yeah. As
are players like John Moutinho and who's your goalkeeper? Rui Patricio?
Yeah,
Thank you. I got nervous for a moment about getting at Patricio. I'm not sure why.
You'll learn all about him on Saturday if you get through the Wolves' defence.
He's already haunted my dreams. It's fine.
Next question comes from Tasha Mowry. Tasha Mowry, or maybe Mowry, asks, if you were picking the 18-player US Women's National Team roster for the Olympics, by the way, everyone should be glad that we are not picking that roster, would you still include Crystal Dunn as a defensive player? So will she still be a left back like she was for Gillette?
I'm going to say if you have a fully fit roster to choose from, if everybody's healthy, I think that's where she has to go.
Okay. Why?
Because I don't think it's worth disrupting. If Vlatko, if I'm coaching this, I'm going to stick with the 4-3-3. I'm going to sort of do do what Vlatko has done, but say it's me doing it. I don't think I would want to break up the Ertz, Rose Lavelle partnership. I like that a lot, and I think there are other players like Sam Ewis who can come in and do that role there. So maybe Crystal Dunn is like a substitute there or a capable backup, but I don't think it's worth relegating Crystal Dunn to backup because she can't break into those.
What about on the wings?
Three.
Because she can also play as an attacking winger, right?
She could, but then you look at everybody else who's there, and I feel like there's so much depth there.
Yeah, Heath, Rapinoe, Press, too.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So it makes sense to maybe keep her where she is and use her as a more attack-minded player when you're going against teams where you expect to have much more of the ball, or you could use the kind of late arriving, overlapping fullback to cause attacking problems. And then maybe if you're going against a team where you need a bit more defensive solidity, maybe that's where you do have her as a winger or something like that. But I think I would primarily go defense first, yes.
And I think before the World Cup, we were all questioning Jill Ellis on whether this was a good idea, even having Crystal Dunn play left back at all. Then more so when we saw the roster, because there wasn't an obvious backup left back. It was like maybe Tiana Davidson can shift over, maybe Kelly O'Hara can play both fullback positions at once. Yeah. But it worked out. US won the World Cup, and Crystal Dunn was magnificent throughout the tournament. Right. I get the point of Tasha's question is probably the 18-player roster. You're losing 5 players, right? It's a bit of a squeeze. Versatility becomes more important. But then Crystal Dunn is maybe the most versatile player on that roster. So I think it does
could genuinely play at least 4 positions for the US women.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense to keep her as a defensive player. I assume that Tasha means left back.
Yes.
Yeah. So Crystal Dunn's in there, and she's a left back. Unless, and here's the other thing, no one has outperformed her at left back. That's the other major thing,
I mean,
right?
Casey Short had 2 games in the camp, or maybe 1 game in the first camp under Vlatko, but even then, that's still not like enough of a sample size.
Did she win the World Cup in those games?
I don't believe she did, Daryl. I don't believe she did. Next question.
Yes, please.
Philip Gibson. Do you think any team from the Premier League will ever reach 114 points?
The short answer is no.
I did the math wrong on this for a minute, by the way.
Did you really?
Yes, because I thought this was the question of because Liverpool have 1 draw this season?
Yes.
That's it. So for a second I thought it was the math equal, could Liverpool basically just win out? Would they be the first team? Yeah. Not realizing that, nope, the math was wrong. That means you have to win every single game.
Yep, 114 points is 38 times 3. It's winning every single game.
Yeah.
The answer is no, I don't think. The most any team has ever gotten is 100 points. That was Manchester City in 2017-18. They had 98 points in 2018-19. Those are the 2 highest points total. So the upper limit is being pushed, but I think it's impossible to win every single game.
Why?
Because there are lots of other good teams out there. Someone's going to get you at some point, even in terms of a draw. Yep. But 2, there are other competitions. There's the FA Cup. There's the EFL Cup. Yep. There's the Champions League. If you're a team challenging at the top of the Premier League, you're almost certainly also in the Champions League. At some point, you will get tired or have to field a sort of second-string squad-rotated type team. You will drop a point at some point.
I agree entirely, and that gets to the relegation question we had a moment ago, but it applies here as well. The part I forgot to mention is that my argument was going to be, I do think we maybe will see more teams at threat of relegation going forward because there is so much more money in the Premier League that I think teams, lower league teams, lower tier teams, have more money, can spend more. And I do think as a result this season, we're going to see teams needing to get more points than historically it's been, 40 points in your safe?
Give or take, yeah.
Look at how many teams already have 20 points this year, and it's almost all of them, or it's a lot of them at this point. So I think you're starting to see teams get better.
Yeah.
So I think
there's always a threat from every team, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But because of that, if everyone's getting better, it also means that even the weaker teams could potentially knock you off because they're still good enough to be in the Premier League and still good enough to be that next level caliber team.
And then there's a magnificent achievement like Arsenal, 2003-04. The Invincibles went through an entire season without losing a game, right? So an invincible season. They got 90 points.
Yep.
Right? They did not get 114 points. Maybe one day some miracle team will do it, and it'll be like the Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, and then everybody suddenly started running 4-minute miles because everyone just believed it was possible.
Yeah.
But I just think there's always going to be, throughout the length of a football season, there's always going to be at least one game that you don't win.
Yes.
There you go.
So I have this question for you, though. So as you said, what the record points total is, 99, 100?
100, yeah.
Do you think Liverpool break that record this season?
What have they got right now?
Many.
So they've only drawn 1 game, right?
21 games, they've only drawn 1.
Well, they've only dropped 2 points, right? So, yeah, I mean, if they keep it up, then yes, right?
Yeah. I think they do. I think they'll break Man City's points record, short of a massive downturn in form, and I don't see that happening. And even then, I feel like they could still have a couple bad games and break that 100-point record.
I mean, look how basically perfect Liverpool have been so far in the league, and they've still managed to drop 2 points. Yep. That's why 114 is not possible.
Agreed.
If it ever happens, delete this podcast.
Don't do that, though. Don't do that. Keep us around.
No, just this episode. Keep listening.
All right.
Listening. Next question comes from Erin Gustafsson. Erin Gustafsson asks, if you had to pick just one NWSL team to follow for the season, who would it be and why?
The North Carolina Courage.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
I assume you would have gone Spirit just because you kind of have been to see them already and you kind of support them.
Nah, I like winners. No. I mean, it would be.
I'm not going to get you.
I'm not looking at this from a fandom standpoint. Like, okay. I'm looking at it if you're picking a team and if you're okay with being like a fair weather fan. But I'm not even saying like as a fan. I'm saying that the team that I think would probably be the most entertaining to watch is your two-time champion or your back-to-back champion because they have so much talent. Yes, Sam Kerr is gone, but I think they still have.
She's in Chicago.
Excuse me. Yeah, Sam Kerr is. So yeah, never mind. I had her in Chicago. Never mind. North Carolina, meanwhile, have Jess McDonald still around. They've still got Abby Dahlkemper playing balls out of the back. They've got the aforementioned Crystal Dunn. They've got so many exciting, talented pieces in that team that I think, and they play really, really exciting soccer. Chicago, I had on my list because they're fun, but no more Sam Kerr means now I'm sad. The only other one that I think could be in there from a like interesting to see how the season plays out standpoint is Seattle because of the new connection to Lyon.
That's my choice.
Yeah.
Seattle Reign or Reign FC because of the Lyon purchase.
Yep.
So the way this is structured now is there's a group, OL group, Olympic Lyon group. And
Lynn Williams is the other attacker. I couldn't remember. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
OL group own the Lyon men's team, the Lyon women's team, which is maybe the best team in women's football, definitely the best team in Europe. And now they own the Seattle team as well in the NWSL. I am really interested to see how they treat the Seattle team.
Yeah.
Is it like, are they the third tier team behind the other two? Or do they get equal or as good as treatment as the Lyon women's team?
Yeah, and I think that it'll be fascinating to see what that treatment is, but also if that treatment goes well, do other teams follow suit? Do we see Barcelona trying to establish relationships, or Real Madrid, or some of the English teams?
And this would be a way to get loads of money into the NWSL, right? If this works out, this is, I think, one of the primary, not revenue, but financing sources for how the NWSL could take that next step. It's not like they're going to get a gigantic TV contract, right, that's going to pay loads and loads of money. I mean, even MLS, as developed as it is, can't do that. But if you're suddenly linked with all these gigantic organizations, money can flow into the NWSL. And I think if that happens, there'll be a stronger argument for much, much higher salaries because groups like OL Group can afford it.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the team to watch maybe off the field in a way. Like on the field as well, but just the business aspect. I think
Megan Rapinoe's there. It makes sense to watch them on the field as well.
There we go. Yeah, she might even play for them this year.
She might even.
Next question.
New manager as well, since Vlatko is no longer there.
Next question comes from Christian Astorga. Christian Astorga asks, are you ready, Taylor? What are your expectations for the US men's national team and Gregg Berhalter in 2020?
I've got varying ones. I'm going to start World Cup qualifying strongly. That is number one expectation, that you've got to ease some nerves, soothe some jangled souls, or whatever the expression is. And I think that's one way to do it.
Soothe some jangled souls.
Yeah, man. People are nervous. People are anxious. If you start off with a draw in that first game, or like a draw and then like a shaky win, I don't know how well that's going to go over, as opposed to just two strong wins. We're off 6 points. Things seem way better.
So if people don't know, we don't have the final six competitors for the Hex yet, but we do know there will be six.
Doesn't matter, win them.
Right? We have games on the schedule in 2020, September, October, November. We're assuming 2 match days for the Hex in each. You only play 10 games in the Hex. We could play 6 of them by the end of 2020. So my expectation is that we be in the top 2 in the Hex by the end of 2020.
Okay.
I think that's a good expectation and a realistic expectation and an expectation that will jangle my soul. Unjangle my soul.
Unjangle. You got to be unjangled. And then some other less measurable ones would be I would like to see them win a game against a better opponent. And that could be by playing better soccer. Or
Netherlands in March?
Yeah. Or it could be by finding a way to win and scrapping their way through. Like there's the Klinsmann one where I think Danny Williams scores a goal and they beat the Netherlands, and Danny Williams was the 6th sub. So how much faith do you put into that? I don't know.
It's a Netherlands reservist team.
But when you are able to at least kind of go and get a result, be scrappy. Saracen had his team do it against France when he was the interim manager. I want to see the U.S. sort of go at a team that sort of cares in that game and see them look like, okay, this is the team that can actually beat like better tier opposition than we've seen so far.
I've also got on my list, make the Nations League final.
Okay.
Right, so in June, we talked about this on our 2020 prediction show, right? But it's the CONCACAF Nations League final, the championships, 4 teams in June. Our semi-final is against Honduras. Got to beat Honduras. Then we'll be in the final against either Mexico or Costa Rica or Mexico. Bigger picture stuff, I'm looking for multiple identifiable patterns of play.
Okay.
We saw bits of it last year, right? We saw like the diagonal ball to the far post for the overlapping fullback. We saw the centre forward comes deep and the winger runs in behind. We saw it working occasionally. I would like to see more of those, so the repertoire is like 50 different moves that we have, so it's not just really predictable and ineffective, right?
Do you feel like January will give you a good lens into that? Because that's when we saw last year at this time. That's when we saw like Nick Lima becoming a central midfielder, and that was the thing that we're sort of like, okay, we're seeing new things.
I think we'll see some of the new ideas. Maybe we'll see a couple more of the new ideas. Yeah, because they do. As I understand it, Berhalter is like teaching things like patterns and then adding and adding and adding. Eventually, you're supposed to have this entire repertoire, right? The other thing is, I would like to see in 2020 the US keep the fast transitions where applicable. Right? We saw it in November against Canada. Canada sent fullbacks forward, coughed the ball up, or we won the ball. There was space to not pass slowly and slowly get there. There was just space to bang balls into for Paul Arriola to run onto. I would like to see the US do more of that. Yeah. So do the build-up play, do the positional play, but also just exploit space when it's there. I think we have hit that good balance. At least we did against Canada in November. I just want to see that continue through 2020.
Are there any players that you are...
Dwayne Holmes.
Okay, but that is a question. Like, if we don't see Dwayne Holmes through the first 6 months of the year, is that going to frustrate you?
Yes.
Or if the United States is still playing well, less so?
I mean, there's a chance that we don't see Dwayne Holmes because, say, for the March friendlies, he happens to be injured or something. So if there's a reason... then yeah, it's fine, right? There's nothing you can do about it. But if he's available in March and doesn't get a selection, it's not that far from England to the Netherlands. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
It's not big travel. I would get him on a ferry if you have to. So, Dwayne Holmes is the one. If he doesn't get called up in 2020, I'll be frustrated.
All right. I like that. Because I do have, a couple other ones for me would be, like, stop calling in some of the best way I can describe them as square pegs. And I don't, he's not listening. But, like, Will Trapp would be an example. Like, Will Trapp is a player now that we both feel confident saying is not going to be a player that we feel comfortable. If somebody gets hurt in the World Cup and Will Trapp is going to have to start for us, that's going to be a grabbing the collar, looking for some air sort of situation. So I think I would like to see some of those players phased out, some players that we don't think are at that level, and then continuing to look for younger talent or developing talent or players coming through. That the January camp thus far seems like a good indication that will continue to be the case. There's 5 teenagers in this January camp. That's a decent amount for me, but I would like to see that continue, and more so than just, we've called in this youngster, we've called in this youngster. They didn't get any minutes, but look, we're calling in young players. Like, I'd like to see some players sort of start to earn their way into the squad, and if they do, then they continue to get those minutes as opposed to, but like, this guy's been there before, so we're going to keep playing him.
I think what you'll see is probably, assuming we qualify for the Olympics, you'll see a lot of guys get a lot of experience at the Olympics at the back end of the summer. Olympics is late July, early August, right? And then, hopefully, that will have been a platform for, say, Paxton Pomykal to have made an impact with the US soccer program to the point where in September, suddenly, assuming he's in decent form, he's a realistic choice to be in the matchday squad for the senior US men's national team. All the Olympic stuff is behind. We don't have to think about juggling U23s and senior. I can see that the Olympics being like a springboard or a platform for players to become first-team regulars.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That would make me feel more optimistic.
Final thing I have is I'm looking forward and expecting the integration of a fit Tyler Adams into the US midfield. Like, I think it is time to see if Tyler Adams can play the number 6. And our number 6s are Jackson Ewell, Tyler Adams, still maybe Michael Bradley here and there.
Can you make him be healthy?
I can try. So it's working so far, right?
Yeah.
I actually love that he made his comeback.
You've been doing that? That's been your work?
I mean, I've been praying for it every day, crossing my fingers.
You do that little Tyler Adams shrine in your house.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Don't tell him about that. I like that he came back towards the end of I can't remember if it's the Hinrunde or the Rückrunde, but the first half of the Bundesliga season, played really well for like 86 minutes or whatever it was. And then he gets the winter break rest as well, right? So we're not in danger of overexerting him really quickly. So he's back, then he gets a nice rest, training camp, but rest from match days, and then he's back in action when the German season starts.
And then he's captain for life?
Captain for... Well, let's not use that phrase.
So you have the Tyler Adams shrine. Does Adam Bells have the Richie Ledesma shrine? Is that what he has?
Definitely,
okay, cool. I feel like he's got a couple different shrines, a couple different players. And then...
Oh, by the way, I did hear Richie Ledesma was US Soccer were interested in calling him up. I saw this is a Brian Sciaretta tweet, and I trust Brian Sciaretta. US Soccer wanted to call him up for this January camp, but PSV wanted him to train with the first team in the winter. So good news all around for Richie Ledesma fans.
Good news all around for Richie Ledesma fans. One thing that would be good news
party at Bell's house
for US soccer fans in general, this isn't, and it would be a party at Bell's house, and I would go to that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily USMNT, but more generally, I think the other thing we definitely need to see from US soccer is some coaches getting hired.
Yes.
That would be another big one. They announced today they've hired a goalkeeper coach for the senior men's team.
From Atlanta, right?
So that's a hiring.
I also saw Laura Harvey had stepped down at Utah.
Interesting.
So that might be a women's national team youth program hire. Don't know.
Interesting.
We're recording the show in the middle of a lot of decisions happening.
Wow, that feels like
That'd be a big name hire, right?
Feels like a step down for Laura Harvey. I feel like maybe that's a national team gig coming up for her, potentially.
Yeah, well, like U20s, U23s. I don't know.
I meant more so like another national team somewhere else.
Oh, I see. No, the rumor was she's going to be a US soccer hire. Yeah, we'll see what Kate Margraff.
She'll be at the United Soccer Coaches Convention in Baltimore. Maybe we'll have to harass her until she gives us an answer.
All right. Well, you're assuming she'll be there because of NWSL, right? Maybe she won't now.
Nah, we'll find out.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I think she's scheduled to give a presentation, so
there we go.
I don't think she's just going to scrap that one.
I didn't know about that. All right. Ready for the next question? Okay. It comes from Grace Ott. Grace Ott says...
I think I'm uniquely positioned to talk about this one as opposed to Daryl.
Would you want to ask me?
Sure.
Go on.
Grace Ott. The Premier League is considered by many the best league in the world. What are the factors that led to its success? Was it money, work permits, restricting lower quality players, the history of the game being there, some combination of those, or something else entirely?
Money. Mm-hmm. The answer is money.
Yep.
So for those who don't know, what happened in, 92 is the Premier League broke away from the rest of the Football League so they could negotiate their own TV deal that they didn't have to share with all four divisions. They could just have all the money that they negotiated for themselves. And this happened in concert with Rupert Murdoch's Sky TV. So this was a revolution in England. We didn't have cable before. You just had 4 channels that came through the aerial, right? Suddenly, satellite dishes were for sale, and you had Sky TV, which is like the English equivalent of cable. It was a big thing to try and put really valuable things on Sky TV so that people would have to go out, get a satellite dish, get Sky. That was the whole thing. Like, have you got Sky? Has your family got Sky? It was almost like a weird class system developed in the 90s. Rupert Murdoch and Sky TV put the Premier League on Sky Sports to make it the must-have thing. And just poured loads and loads and loads of money into the English Premier League through the TV deal. So that's where it all starts, is with all the money coming in from Sky TV.
Random but related question. Was that, in order to get Sky to have that subscription at the time, was that more of a middle upper class sort of thing? Or was that a thing that was available or easily accessible to all people?
I think you could, if you figured out your budget, you could get it, right?
Okay.
It wasn't horrifically unaffordable. Right. It was an extra thing in your budget.
I ask only because in doing some reading about this, I have heard the argument that a lot of the Premier League and early 90s soccer is in opposition to the way football was in the 70s and 80s with violence, with hooliganism, with outdated stadia, with kind of the focus on match day revenue of people going through the turnstiles, and that there was a deliberate move towards getting middle-class people to start being more into soccer because they wanted less violence, but they wanted more money at the same time.
Well, part of it is the popularity of the England team at the 1990 World Cup, where they made the semi-finals. I think made a lot of
that makes sense.
Essentially money people realise that there's the potential for the whole country, not just hooligans, to support football because of how popular that England team was.
That makes sense.
And the Premier League is almost like the cashing of that check.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We'll give football for those people. So that's part of it. Yeah.
And then is it fair to say, and maybe it's not, this is a genuine question for you, is it fair to say that the idea of the lucrative TV deal was sort of a revolutionary idea of the time? Because it does sound, again, from what I read, that it was sort of clubs looking at, no, we got to focus on match day attendance. We don't really want there to be better TV deals because we don't want people staying at home watching games. We want them in the stadium.
Well, it just wasn't that much money at the time. So, a big money TV deal was revolutionary at the time. I want to say it was revolutionary throughout all of football, and other countries are still, in a way, catching up to how much money the Premier League makes when it negotiates its TV deal.
Because I think it's worth reiterating.
And obviously that money is then spent on players, and that's why you end up with loads of exciting players in the Premier League, and that's why it gets really popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have more reasons. Though.
Please, keep going.
Okay, so there was the Taylor report in the aftermath of the Hillsborough disaster, which essentially, the very basics of it is it called for all stadiums in England to be all-seater, so no standing, it was all seating. it led to a lot of teams rebuilding their stadiums, right? So suddenly you have a lot of shiny new stadiums in English football in the 90s, and then it's a better looking product on TV, right? It's not the shabby stadiums from the 80s with like rusty sheds. You know what I mean? You get these like really magnificent looking things, so that makes for a better product on TV.
And more people want to go, because if you're suddenly in a modern stadium that's comfortable and easy to get around, you don't. That was also when they moved away from having beer that you could just drink in your seat. You could only drink beer.
You didn't
if
even have a seat before.
You couldn't see the field though, right? That was the new rule.
I didn't go until post 90.
But that's what I'm saying is like now the rule is you can't drink beer within view of the field. Like you have to do
right?
it. You have to do it like in the concourses.
Yeah. A lot of
so like,
drinking in the
but even that was a move towards we got to get away from some of the hooliganism. We got to kind of limit some of that in order to make soccer a bit more appealing.
More reasons. Colour. I honestly think still, when you look at the Premier League, the way it's presented, it's bright and it's colourful. And if you look at other football leagues, I would say Italy and Spain especially, I don't know what it is, the way they use the cameras, but it just looks a bit less colourful. The English Premier League has always been presented in this way that's really...
the green is well...
the green is very green.
Well coloured,
right?
Yeah. I don't know how you explain that one.
Nothing green's greener. Yeah. It's a Pliny the Elder quote.
I mean, the lack of running tracks around the fields consistently in England is a big deal.
Because of new stadiums. Yeah, that's a thing they can't have in Italy.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I remain convinced that people in the U.S. not like became Chelsea fans, certainly because of Mourinho, certainly because of how good they were, but also because Stamford Bridge on TV is a really, really, really pretty stadium because everything is so right on top of the field that it looks so claustrophobic. There's always fans everywhere. Everybody's vocal, sometimes too vocal. But I feel like that, like you have that sort of aesthetic. It definitely helps with pulling people in.
That's the other thing. It may not be as true now, but in the early 90s, there was very like loud crowds. Again, made for a good TV product. Yeah. It's English language, which exports well with the commentary and all that kind of stuff. I think it just became a very exportable product. That's loads. So more money keeps coming in, the more you sell it abroad. That's how the Premier League became so successful. I mean, there's actually a really good book on this by, I've forgotten the name of it, but it's by David Goldblatt. I haven't read it, but I've heard that it's like the definitive history of how the Premier League.
It's David Goldblatt, so I believe it's the definitive history
of how the Premier League became so successful. So if Grace wants to know more, I really recommend that book.
I have a question for you,
which I haven't read.
I have a question for you before we move on. Like we have talked on the show previously about how you tend to be in favor of changes to competitions or new competitions coming through or anything like that.
At least I'm not scared. Like some co-hosts.
How are you not scared? Just I don't like buying into a thing that I feel like is being sold to me for marketing purposes, but then I buy into it for legitimate reasons. The idea of being somebody's sucker I don't enjoy, and that's maybe a huge part of it, but that's me, and that's maybe therapy for later. Right now, my question for you, Daryl, is at the time, do you remember this happening, and what was your feeling then? Was it, or what was the feeling in England when the Premier League started?
So, I mean, I got into football because of the 1990 World Cup, right? I didn't care that much before because I watched England at the 1990 World Cup. That was my
plastic fan
way in. I mean, kind of. I mean, I was only
plastic 90 fan,
10 years old, but yeah. And then I do remember this whole thing of Sky TV had the Premier League and the Simpsons in 1992. And wrestling. It had the wrestling, the WW.
Oh, that would make sense because it's Rupert Murdoch, right? That's what you said. So yeah, he owns Fox. There we go. Okay,
so wrestling, Simpsons, and Premier League. I wanted to see all those things. I didn't have them.
That is a strange combination of things.
But for a 11, 12-year-old boy, right? Yeah. So my elder sister had Sky TV. She used to tape stuff for me, give me the tapes, and I could watch it. Or I'd go around there and watch Premier League games. So that was my memory of it being a thing that I kind of had access to, but I had to get a tape, or I had to sort of arrange to go around Karen's house and watch the football. So it had this air of just within reach luxury. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Did you tape stuff off the radio too?
I did that, yeah.
Kids these days. They'll never know the plight.
With your Spotifys and your Amazon Music.
They'll never know having to try to figure out how to program a VCR to be able to come home and watch World Cup games.
Yeah, and you're never quite sure that it's going to work.
Yeah, and then when it didn't, you instead are watching static for an hour and a half. And you had to. You had to watch the whole static. If you record it, that was the rule of VHS. You couldn't turn away.
Pass that law.
They really shouldn't have. It seemed unnecessary at the time.
So yeah, that's
in retrospect.
That's my memory of it.
Right.
Should we keep going through these questions?
All right, we should. Which is to say, we have one more question.
Yeah.
Well, should we do it? Let's do it.
Yep.
Sagar Shreer-Magiri asks, "What is the bare minimum and ideal recovery time for a professional soccer player between games? Is playing every alternate day, like some EPL sides do during festive season, just bad, or is it inhuman, or is it okay?"
I'm assuming inhuman. He means inhumane.
You never know.
Right? So, I mean, it's not inhuman because it is possible.
There you go.
It's not inhumane.
Also that.
Because these players aren't, suffering in a real way, right? So it's not terrible in that sense. But it's not optimum performance,
No.
right? So you can play every other day. I mean, I've played a couple of weeks every day. I know I'm not professional, but it's possible to do it, and you don't necessarily get hurt unless you have some sort of underlying medical condition. But you are not at 100% capacity, and you can't expect a professional athlete to perform to their full potential if something like the festive period happens continuously. Even as it does happen, everybody rotated their squad, right? There was a game where Wolves didn't start Adama Traore. It was against Liverpool, I believe. Game where they didn't start Ruben Neves. I'm going with the team I'm most familiar with. There was no way to play your full starting 11 every game with games every 2 or 3 days.
Because, and I think this is a key point there, is that even if you, the player, feel like, I feel fine, I'm okay, I think that's what physios exist for, is to look at your performance overall and say, no, you're down. There's a downturn that you're not aware of. That's backed up. I texted Bobby Warshaw about this, and he said basically there are different forms of being tired. Sometimes you're legitimately spent and can feel the wear on your body. More often your body is worn down, but you just don't know it. It's just how you've come to feel every day. So you don't feel down, you just feel normal, even though your body is worn down.
Yes.
A definitive Bobby answer.
No, I think that's the right answer.
But it's basically so I think it's not as though you have to have this amount of rest, otherwise you will be completely incapable of playing. But I think what it is that if you don't have enough rest, you might start a game at 85% and you'll feel fine, but you just know that you're 85%, and so you maybe fatigue a little bit faster on the back end. Maybe you become a bit more susceptible to injury, depending on your playing style.
I would also say the FIFA video game, there's the energy bar.
Kind of what I was thinking of there.
As that bar goes down, those players think they're fine.
Yeah, right.
The little digital players think they're fine, but they're not moving around as fast.
But I know you've had this too, and we are obviously not world-class players, or I'll speak for myself there. But I've definitely
I'm still working on it.
I've definitely had that moment, though. Give it time. We'll see what happens. When, say I played... there have been games where I've played two games on a Sunday, and that second game, even if it's a lower level, I will have that moment of I got to that this morning. I did not get to that this time.
I don't do that anymore, but I've had that same experience.
And it's definitely a measurable downturn. I would say though that we're still talking about this from an amateur perspective, and I do think professional athletes, being that they are professional athletes, have a faster turnaround time, can handle a bit more because they have obviously greater muscle mass, greater fitness, but also greater people around them to immediately deal with any sort of injuries. They're immediately into an ice bath and then treatment and then massages and then everything else. I think that puts them in a better position to play more regularly.
So to answer the second part of Sagar's question, what's the ideal recovery time or the bare minimum? I would guess, based on players comfortably-ish playing midweek and then weekend, it's 3.5 days.
I would agree.
Right?
I think so.
Players do play Saturday or Sunday and then, say, Wednesday in the Champions League. It averages out about 3.5 days between games. I think that's enough to get back to close to peak performance. Maybe if you do that every week for a whole year, or every week for a couple of months, you obviously start to trend downwards, but at least in the short-ish term, you can play Saturday, Wednesday.
Another very interesting point that goes with what you're saying that I thought was interesting that came from Bobby was he was essentially arguing that players would much prefer to play in a game than train. Training is
fun, right?
But so when you have this fixture period, what tends to happen is some of the training goes down because you have so many more games. But even that can be problematic because even if you're reducing the intensity of your training sessions, it also means that you're not getting those training sessions. So you're sort of going 100% each time because you've got so many games without a lot of that sort of those 3 days of, okay, we're recovering, now we're back into training, now we're back up to the point where you need to be 100% in time for kickoff. It sort of is fewer training sessions, but still you're then at 100%, more dramatically can cause problems down the road, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I feel like overall 3 days is probably the way to go. Yes.
Okay. I have very professional opinion is 3 days.
Yeah, Saturday then Tuesday. You're good to go.
So we answered 12 questions.
Yeah.
What's the time on the clock?
Shorter than I thought it would be.
There we go. Yeah, we did it. I think that's the new standard. Next time we'll do 13.
All right. 13 in 45 minutes.
Thank you to everybody who sent in questions. We love answering listener questions. You can ask us one at totalsoccershow.com/questions. The link will be in the show notes. And again, if you want to support us, totalsoccershow.com/join. If you join at $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one question per month.
That we do.
We also very deliberately answer a lot of non-$10 questions as well. Right? We'll never get to a stage where it's pay to play the whole way.
We will not. I have a question for you, though. Why did you decide that we needed to record this show with 12 questions in a sauna? Why did that seem to be like a good idea for you?
Yeah, that was not my choice. That was the real estate company or whoever manages this building that our office is in. They have set the thermos. So I don't know.
I think it's Leon from Curb Your Enthusiasm setting the thermostat. Yeah, I think he likes to set it at 85. I think is what he said. That's about where we are right now. We both came in jackets and sweaters and things.
Yep,
and
I'm down to a t-shirt, and I'd go further if TSS propriety allowed.
There we are.
All right, are you ready for some scouting reports?
I believe I am.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to say 6 scouting reports on today's show.
We do, starting with the aforementioned Cameron Carter-Vickers, scouted by Todd Brandon.
I haven't read ahead. Has the move happened?
It has not. At least not at time of reporting. Instead, 22-year-old American defender for Tottenham, Cameron Carter-Vickers, turned 22 on New Year's Eve. That's the news we are waiting for. And potentially better news, Stoke City announced on Twitter that CCV was being recalled by Tottenham, thereby ending his loan deal with Stoke.
All right, thank you, Todd. Jeff Markman is scouting Reece Nelson, 20-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal. Jeff says, after a lengthy spell out of the team due to injury and lack of fitness, Reece Nelson started Freddie Ljungberg's final game in charge, as well as the first 2 games under Mikel Arteta. Arteta has placed a premium on work rate in training, and it appears Nelson is outclassing record signing Nicolas Pepe in that regard.
I think this was sent before Arsenal's win over Man United.
He scored the second goal, Pepe, didn't he? It also appears Nelson's game is evolving towards being a hard-working two-way player, still capable of getting down the wing, but also stepping into central midfield to help Arsenal avoid being overrun. Nelson did play a lot of games during the festive period, though, right? So, again, rotation. Nelson, Pepe, Nelson, Pepe.
Hopefully only one game every 3 days. Keith Kalmbach scouting Marcelo Palomino, 18-year-old American winger for the Houston Dynamo. Palomino has reportedly signed with his hometown team, the Houston Dynamo. Training sessions with FC Porto this past year didn't lead to a contract, so signing for the Dynamo would be a step in the right direction, following nearly 18 months without competitive soccer.
I'm guessing the Tab Ramos relationship had a bit to do with
Probably didn't hurt.
As well. Oscar Young is scouting Michael Obafemi, the 19-year-old Irish forward for Southampton. Oscar says Obafemi gave Southampton the lead in their recent 2-0 win over Chelsea, latching onto a Pierre-Emile Højbjerg diagonal pass. He cut past 2 defenders before blasting into the top corner for his first league goal of the season. Go on, Michael Obafemi.
Did you start to do Pierre-Emerick?
No.
I do that every time with that name. Like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Nailed it. Devin Kiefer, scouting Erling Haaland, 19-year-old Norwegian forward for Borussia Dortmund. Haaland has signed for Borussia Dortmund after the Black and Yellow met his release clause. According to an article posted on the Bundesliga's official site, he will wear number 17 and is likely to make his debut against Augsburg on January 18th.
Ian Shank is scouting Fernando Arce Jr., 23-year-old American defensive midfielder for Necaxa. Fernando Arce Jr. parted ways with Club Tijuana following the end of the Apertura, moving to Necaxa, who placed 5th this fall, so a jump up the table. He only played about 200 minutes this fall with Los Cholos.
So well done, Fernando Arce. Well done to everyone who sent in some scouting reports. There have been lots of other players on the move, lots of rumors, news of that kind, so we hope we get more scouting reports to report back next week.
We've got to do a transfer show at some point as well, right?
I would say we do.
All right.
There have already been quite a few moves.
There have, yeah.
Quite a few.
I want to say, Taylor, best of luck to my team in the TSS Derby this weekend.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You know, a nihilist Man United fan.
A little bit.
Really?
No, I'm just aware.
It takes the fun out of it for me if you're not even...
I just have no idea if they're even going to have enough players for starting 11 tomorrow.
Really?
Jesse Lingard, Anthony Martial sent home with the flu, I believe. So now they have no attackers, I think.
Flu's not good. Flu spreads around the team as well.
You have, Diogo Jota, I think, is out for this one. So it'll be Cutrone starting. Is that what I think I read from The Guardian? Who knows? That was The Guardian's preview.
I would bet Neto.
All right.
Yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because, he's going to be offside and then the goal won't count.
Actually, we'll see whether Wolves go full team for FA Cup and whether Man United do the same. I'm guessing they do because they're playing each other, right?
Sure.
All will be revealed Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
Again, I'm sure you and Ryan will cover it because I'm guessing there'll be some sort of incident in that game.
Yep.
For now, I will say, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.